and all the time. Really thank God for a new day, and I thank you for braving it and coming even with this storm. You made it this morning. I pray that you will be blessed as you are here by just the greetings and the hugs, by a smile from somebody's face, and by the songs and by the word of God. I just pray that you will not leave being the same as you came. Amen? Amen. The text for our meditation this morning is from Matthew chapter 25. We'll be reading from verse 14 to 30. Matthew chapter 25, verse 14 to 30. Is the parable of the talents. For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country, who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. And to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability. And immediately he went on a journey. Then he who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them, and made another 5 talents. And likewise he who had received 2 gained 2 more also. But he who had received 1 went and dug in the ground and hid his Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. So he who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Lord, you delivered to me 5 talents. Look, I have gained 5 more talents besides them. His Lord said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. He also who had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, you delivered to me 2 talents. Look, I have gained 2 more talents besides them. His Lord said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. Then he who had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed. And I was afraid and went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours. But his Lord answered and said to him, You wicked and lazy servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I have not scattered seed. So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. So take the talent from him, and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the unprofitable servant into the outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. This is the word of the Lord. I titled this message this morning, The Choices We Make in Life. The choices we make in life. When I read this story, which I've read for so many years, many times as well, it just occurred to me that Jesus has an awesome ability to speak volumes just in very simple stories. For example, he revealed the heart of God by giving us the story of the prodigal son. That God has a forgiving heart, a kind heart, a merciful heart, a loving heart. He also showed us how to treat one another when he narrated the story of the Good Samaritan. And in our story today, he's telling us what life is all about. And a couple of questions come to my mind when I think about this, what Christ was thinking, which I will ask you this morning. The questions are not just to you, they are for me as well. I wonder, what are you doing with your life, the life that God has given you? How are you investing the time that God has given you? How are you managing the money that God has given you? Just think about it. And to the young people who are in the church today, what career choices will you make as you are going through your studies now? What career choices? What will guide you in making those choices? I ask these questions because I believe that every decision that we make should be made in the light of what Jesus is teaching us in this parable of the talents. If we have never thought about that, I just want us to think about that. That every decision that you make should be in light of the teachings of this talent, of this parable. And this is what life is all about. The story, as we have just heard, is told about a man who was going on a long journey. I emphasize long journey, not just going on a journey. And before he left, he entrusted his property into the hands of 3 of his servants. 2 of those servants were faithful, and the other one was not faithful. When the master returns, he was expecting the servants to give an account of the talent or of the property that he has entrusted in their hands. Those that were faithful were rewarded, and the unfaithful servant was cast out into darkness where he was weeping and gnashing teeth. And I thought to myself, this is a little bit harsh, isn't it? If you think about it, look at the story of the prodigal son, who took the money, went and squandered everything, returned, he was received with open arms. But this servant did not even spend the money. At least he brought back what he was given. Is that fair that he should be cast out like that? And I asked myself, where is the merciful God here? Where is the God of love, of forgiveness? And as I reflected this morning on my way to church again, and I thought, this is showing us that the God of love is also a God of discipline. Amen. He's not just, and he has given you that freedom to make decisions, and therefore you have to be disciplined if you make mistakes. You need to be proactive. And don't just sit there and wait and see things unfold. The life that God has given you, you need to be proactive. Think of the possibilities that you have, how you can use that. Take responsibility of the life that God has given you. And I thought this is a good lesson for me, and I believe that it will be a good lesson to you as well. I want us to consider 3 fundamental facts of life that we can actually draw from this story. The first is this: our master has entrusted to each one of us certain resources and opportunities. That's the first fact of life that we can draw from this story. You know, when we hear of the word talent, we do not think the same way that the disciples were thinking when Jesus told them this parable. Because talent to us is having some skills and the ability, natural abilities to do things. We know about the program that they call British Got Talent, where people come, young and old people come to show some skills and abilities that God has endowed to them. But it was a lot of money. That was not what Christ was. It was a lot of money given to these 3 servants. The point here is, each of these servants was given something very valuable. Something very valuable. Even the 1 talent man was given a lot of money as well. Now the question that we can ask ourselves this morning is this: what do the talents represent in your life? Just reflect on that. What do these talents represent in your life? Is it money? Is it some skills, some abilities that you have? To me, I think they represent everything that God has given you. Everything. Everything you are and everything that you have. That's what I think these talents they represent. And I want us to think about that if you've never thought about that before. Because you may ask this question: what do you have that you have not received from God? Nothing. Even your next breath is a gift from God. There is nothing that you have that's not from God. Paul asked the Christians in Corinth this question. Can you put up the PowerPoint for me, please? Paul asked the Christians in Corinth this question, as you can see on the screen there. For who makes you differ from another? And what do you have that you did not receive? Now, if you did indeed receive it, why do you boast as if you had not received it? The things that God has given us, sometimes we use them to look low on those who do not have what we've got. We use them to talk low on people who don't have the skills and the abilities or the property or the material things that God has given us, and we boast instead of using them for God's own glory. Here is something that we must remember as we journey through life. Every ability that I have, every penny that I earned, every opportunity that comes my way, my next heartbeat, all these things come from God. Amen. That's how I see them. Because I know that I am not my own. I am bought with a price. Amen. And that price is the precious blood of Jesus. Amen. So I think everything really belongs to God. God has just simply entrusted me with these things during this brief season that I call life. Because the moment that I think that the money that I have belongs to me is the time that I'm thinking wrong. The moment that I think I have successes because of my hard work is the moment that I'm thinking wrong. And I want to ask you these questions. Do you have good health? Do you have a good job? Do you have money? I can remind you this morning that all these things are on lent to you just for a brief season. And there's no reason for us to boast with the things that we have. It is not me saying it. Can you just put the next thing for me, please? Thank you. You can see in Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18, which says, "And you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth." Why should you boast as if it is your own ability and skills? Why should you? And you know something? Why should we forget to be even thankful and appreciate what God is doing in our lives? And we go about as if we can do it all on our own. We cannot. But I think about one thing. It's just because we forget where all these things even came from. That's why we fail to be appreciative and to be thankful. Do you know that if you're not careful, you may even be thinking that God is lucky that you even give some time to come and serve him, to even give offerings, to even pray for other people. If we are not careful, because we have just been consumed by our own thinking that our own ability is what keeps us going. And we forget that all what we own and have all come from God. I must tell you that there are serious dangers in this type of thinking if you are thinking that it's by your own power. Because we will not just give an account for the little that we give in the church. We will give an account for everything that we do in and out of the church. What you do at work, what you do in the community, what you do in your family. Remember, we will give an account for every single one of these things. Do you remember the story where this person was asking Jesus, Master, where did I see you naked and I clothed you? Where did I see you hungry and I gave you food? Where did I see you thirsty and I gave you water? And we sit and call ourselves people of God, and we don't reflect on things like this sometimes. And we just go on with our lives. When you read this story, has it ever bothered you that the master in this parable did not give the servants the same amount of money? Have you ever thought about why did he not give the same to all of them? Is it fair? Was it fair that the master should do that? God gives one person, I know some of you here are teachers, some of you are parents. When you stand in front of those children that are in your care, you will notice that some of them, God has given them the ability, they have what they call the photostatic memory. Before you teach something like this, they know it. And they will remember for the rest of their lives. But some children, they will take a long time. They will struggle to learn some basic things. I want us to be thinking about these type of things. Some people, if they walk into this church now, they will become friends with everybody. But some will struggle in relationships. Some children are born in families where they have godly parents that will bring up these children in the way of God. And they will grow and they will walk with God. But some are born in abusive families. Let's think about these things. Is it fair? Is it really fair that it should be happening like this? Dear brothers and sisters, I want us to remember what the landowner said to the workers who complained about him giving a day's wages to the 11th hour workers. Matthew 20 verse 15. Can you just put that up for me, please? Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money? What you have is God who gave you. God has the right to give it out however he wants to. It's all his in the first place anyway. Our lives are in his hands. And he will give you what he chooses to give you. Notice here, each servant is only accountable for what was given him. The 5-talent servant will not be accountable for what was given to the 1-talent servant. And to the 1-talent servant, of course. And the 1-talent servant will not be accountable for what was given to the 2-talent servant. They will give an account of what was handed over to them. What does this tell you and me? That each man and woman will give an account of himself or herself unto God when he will return. The husband will not give an account for the wife, and vice versa. You will not give an account for your mom or dad. You will give an account for yourself because God has entrusted something into your hand. You will find that sometimes we find ourselves comparing ourselves with other people in the church, at workplace, in our homes, and thinking others are more gifted than us. And that's why you will find that when you say to one sister, sister, can you come? I would like you to do this. Say, no, why me? Tell Sister Bridget. I think she will do a better job than me. Why? Because you are not seeing what God has given you, or you think what God has given you is so small that is not valuable, that you are not worthy to do the things that God has entrusted in your hands. Remember, if you are keeping it, it's like the talent that was hidden. But God is expecting you to give an account of what he has given you. You can see that in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12. Can you just turn that on to me, please? Instead of comparing ourselves with other people, I think we're better off making sure we give a good account of what we have in our hands, that God has given us. For this we know, that to whom much is given, much is required. Think about what God has put into your hands. Think about it. Why do I say this? Because we all have certain amount of time, skills, abilities, money to invest in the kingdom of God. But the question here is, what are we doing with all that we have? What are we doing? Because everything that we have, every gift, every ability, our health, our days, our resources, our opportunities, they make up a big package represented by this talent. All that we have. You have something to work with. You cannot think that you have nothing to offer in the kingdom of God. You have been entrusted with something valuable, dear brother and sister. Don't feel that you have nothing to offer in God's kingdom. God's kingdom is not just here in this church. It's in the community. It's at your workplace. It even starts in your own household. Look at what God has given you. How are you blessing the people that God has placed under your care, wherever you are? The second point that we can take, second fact of life that we can pick up from this parable is this. Our master allows us to decide what we will do with those talents that he has given us. You know, when you read this story, you think about free will, isn't it? And free will is awesome. Who doesn't like free will? Free will is really good. In this parable, the master left for a long time. There is the test. That's where the test lies. He left for a long time. There was enough freedom for the servants to take time, make decisions, and decide what they would do with what he entrusted into their hands. Dear brothers and sisters, life is about a choice. And that's why I titled this story or this message, The Choices That We Make in Life. Life is about a choice. One choice. One. And you know, that choice is made up of a lot of decisions. You don't just make the choice, wake up in the morning and just make the choice. You have to take certain things into consideration. A lot of decisions that you take. But in the end, it all boils down to one choice. I will either respond to the goodness of my master and pursue his will, or I will choose my own course and find an excuse for that choice that you make. Two choices. You can choose your own pathway, or you follow the desires of your master. So many decisions that you have to make, but it ends up with one choice. Consider the time that you have. If you use it for yourself, nobody can stop you. The gifts that God has given you, use it the way you want. Nobody will stop you. You can choose to spend every bit of your time on yourself and invest nothing in God's kingdom. Nobody will stop you. It's your choice. There are awful lots of ways that you can spend your life. But we have to decide what our priorities are. And then live with our decisions. So we have to be thinking carefully. I know that all of us sitting here, we have listened to so many motivational speakers. We listen to pastors, we listen to teachers, we listen to great men that can speak and help you to change the course of your life. We have listened to them. So many of them. Let me tell you something. Regardless of what you may have been told by any of these people, you cannot have it all. There's no way you can have it all. Why? Because you and I are finite beings. We are finite, and we have limited amount of time and energy, a very limited amount of resources, and an utter inability to go east and west at the same time. You cannot have it all. You either choose to go west or go east. Because once you say yes to one thing, you are automatically saying no to the other thing. You cannot have it all, dear brothers and sisters. And that's why Christ said, don't be lukewarm, because you will spit out of the mouth. Don't sit on the fence. You are either saying, goodbye world, I have nothing to do with you. I've made up my mind to go with Christ forever and ever. One choice, made from many decisions. One choice. That's why it is very important to choose wisely. This life, my dear brothers and sisters, is not a rehearsal. It's not like the Christmas play that will come here on Wednesday, rehearse, and present on Sunday. This life, you live it once, and that's it. We are not having a rehearsal that, okay, let's practice how to live life before we start living. And you know what? Your choice or your choices, they have eternal implications. The choices that we make, they have eternal implications. Therefore, make your choices wisely. The third and the last thing or fact of life that we get from this parable is our master will one day hold each of us accountable for the choices that we make. That is the measure point of this parable. This third fact is the measure point of this parable. That one day the master that has entrusted the property in your hands will expect you to give an account of what you received. In the first part of Matthew 25, Jesus shared the parable of the 10 virgins. Can you put that up for me, please? It's so tiny, but that parable, you can read Matthew 25 when you go home from verse 1 to verse 13, because I'm going on from verse 14, this message from verse 14. But you will find from that parable, which emphasizes the importance of staying ready for Christ's return. And you know, the delay of Christ's return will distinguish between the foolish and the wise. I want us to think about that. That's what that section is really telling us. The delay of Christ's return will distinguish between the foolish and the wise person. Because being ready means being prepared for a long delay. That's what ready, prepare for the coming of Christ means. Because short-lived zeal is inadequate. You're excited about Christ today because, oh, you've been baptized, and then tomorrow the curves start going down. It will be like just those virgins that went with half oil in their lamps, not ready to wait. Christ's return. We know Christ can come in the next hour. We don't know when he will come. And therefore we have to be ready. It doesn't matter if it's coming tomorrow or next year or the next 10 years or next 100 years. Be ready like those wise ladies who had extra oil. From our story, the 2 faithful servants were glad to see their master come, because they had invested well and were looking forward to presenting their master the profit that they made. And their faithfulness was rewarded. Which of these servants are you? Are you one of those who is waiting that when the master will return, he will say, well done, faithful, good and faithful servant. Or you are the one that will be cast out. Brothers and sisters, to conclude, every day you are investing your life in something valuable. Every single day. And if that investment is to motivate or is motivated by the desire to advance the cause of the Lord and to please Him, it will bring eternal rewards to you. And you notice the reward that was given is a place of authority. More will be added unto you. You will have in abundance. When the master comes back, say, faithful servant, come in and enjoy the goodness of your master. I will put you in charge of many things. Those who have and can invest well, more will be added unto them. This life, brothers and sisters, this life is a preparation for much greater things to come. And I want to encourage us, because we know the coming of the Lord is a major theme in the Bible. And we are to live with that day in our minds. Because the moment we stop thinking about that day, then we'll be going wayward. But if you have in your mind that Christ will one day come and expect you to give an account of what He has entrusted in your hands, you will have that in mind and you will make the right choices. My prayer for you and for everyone this morning is that may each and every one of us be faithful to invest our lives in what matters for all eternity. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor George. God bless you.